like halfway through a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Welcome, YouTube viewers.
Yeah, I like it like halfway through the first movie, and I go, "Oh shoot." All right, we're gonna go Andrew and then Paige for the order.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 417 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Andrew Swafford.
Paige Collier.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we're going to give you a second straight week of movies with unsimulated fellatio and talk about 1976's In the Realm of the Senses as part of
there's more than unsimulated fellatio.
There is, but that's the through line between the two movies. The 1970s were brought to you by fellatio. Speaking of being brought to you, Cinematary is brought to you by Pabst Blue Ribbon PBR. It says, and I quote, "Please cease and desist from reading any ad reads related to Pabst Blue Ribbon or our subsidiaries on your podcast, Cinematary. This is the final cease and desist letter. If you continue with this, we will be forced to both fine you, your company, and anyone related to your company due to libel and defamation. This is, once again, the last cease and desist from the Pabst Blue Ribbon Company. Pabst Blue Ribbon, the proud sponsor of Cinematary."
I feel like we're not defaming anybody here.
I don't know what they're talking about. I can't read. All right, let's jump into movies that we saw this week. And I'm going to go with Andrew first.
Sure. So this week, I watched a movie that I was really excited to see at TIFF last year, but was not able to see at TIFF last year because of a series of unfortunate events that kept me from actually attending the Toronto International Film Festival, which, by the way, I don't know if we've announced on the podcast, we are going again this year. I'm excited.
I think I threw it in as like a side during a break.
So that's in just a couple weeks. That's exciting. But anyways, this movie that I wanted to watch last year, but instead watched this past weekend, Inu-oh, INU-OH, the new animated film by Masaki Yuasa, who's kind of I don't even know if it's fair to call him an up-and-coming anime director. He's kind of arrived.
He's come.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a guy who I think got on a lot of people's radar a couple years ago for his movie Night is Short, Walk On Girl, a movie that Paige's husband, Jordan, turned both of us onto, and fantastic, like masterpiece.
So good.
Of modern
Can't recommend
animation.
it enough.
Shout out Jordan.
Incredible movie. Incredible man, Jordan.
Also,
That's my husband.
He made a baller episode of Adventure Time for any of.
I did not know. Yeah,
great episode. Mm-hmm.
Huh.
But I've seen a couple of his movies now. I've seen Night is Short, Walk On Girl, of course. That was my introduction to him. I have seen Mind Game, which was kind of an early success for him. I've seen Lou on the Wall, and I've seen this new one, Inu-oh. I know he also made a movie a year or two ago called Ride Your Wave that I think Zach was kind of mid on. Is that right?
It was okay.
Yeah, so my thing about Masaki Yuasa is that he is incredibly inconsistent. Like movie to movie, and then like within a movie, there will be scenes that I really like and scenes that I really dislike, and choices that really feel like they work, and then choices that really feel like they don't work. The only movie that I feel like is a top to bottom success is Night is Short, Walk On Girl, and the rest of his stuff feels all over the place. And that is a thing that I think is going to be considered a positive. It's a feature for a lot of people because that's kind of his style. His style, he doesn't necessarily have a like really clearly defined grounded style. It's very like wobbly and goofy and chaotic. He kind of comes from the like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Katamari Damacy, like weird anime nonsense energy. You know, like that's what he's bringing to the table. Like Mind Game, for example, like jumps back and forth between a lot of different styles of animation. He uses stop motion and claymation and painting on top of like normal traditional like 2D hand-drawn anime. And his stuff is just kind of like bursting at the seams with energy and ideas and creativity and imagination. And like it's really admirable, just like the ethos behind his stuff. The problem for me is that often the stories do not come together in a way that is like compelling or satisfying. Like Mind Game, which is maybe his most impressive movie in terms of animation, is a movie that I just like just cannot get behind on a very fundamental level, because it like when you boil it down, it's kind of about this, you know, personality devoid, you know, cliche male anime protagonist who just wants to like grope this woman who has cartoonishly huge boobs. Like that's what the movie's about, right? And he does lots of silly, over the top things with the animation that it's easy to in the moment get swept up in. But I don't care about this story, and I'm actually actively kind of repulsed from it, right? Blue Over the Wall is just some kind of like Saturday morning cartoon nonsense. Did not enjoy that on any level. Inu-oh, the new one, is the closest I've gotten with Yuasa to another like unequivocal success. And I should say that the people that I went to watch this movie with, Jessica and Cam, who've been on the podcast a lot, especially Jessica, really loved this movie. And like if Jessica was here, she would give a very enthusiastic defense of some of the things that I'm going to say about it. But I still kind of liked this movie. I mostly liked this movie, but like there are a lot of things that keep me from loving it in the way that my friends have. But anyways, Inu-oh. It is set in feudal Japan. It is about a guy who comes from kind of a rich family, or like a noble family. His father dies very early on in the movie, and he becomes a priest, specifically what's called a biwa priest. And a biwa is like a Japanese traditional instrument, kind of like the shamisen that movie people might know from Kubo and the Two Strings. It's kind of similar to that. And the biwa priests, they go from town to town, and they play music and they sing songs that are meant to kind of keep history alive. They're telling stories of past military conflicts and past peoples who have kind of been wiped from the earth. At least that's what they do in this movie. I don't know what all they did in history, but that's kind of how this movie depicts them. And there's another character, not the main character, named Inu-oh, the titular character, who has been cursed. And his curse is that he has he's like been deformed in ways that are kind of left mysteriously undefined by the movie. Like he wears a mask for almost the entirety of the movie, and the mask has holes in weird places, and you can see eyes coming through the mask, and you're not quite sure what this guy's face would look like with the mask off because of the strange places the eyes are. And he also has one extremely long arm that is like 3 or 4 times the length of a normal arm, for example. And Inu-oh is a great singer. He is, kind of considered an abomination. People are afraid of him. They keep their distance from him, but he's this beautiful singer. And Inu-oh and our protagonist, whose name is Tamona. Sorry, I had to look it up on Letterboxd really quick. Inu-oh and Tamona end up joining up and creating essentially a rock band in feudal Japan. Like they begin telling stories that are kind of related to Inu-oh's history, like the reason why he's cursed. It has to do with this very tragic war crime or military atrocity that happened to a specific group of people, the Heike people. And so they start telling the story of the Heike people in a way that kind of runs contrary to the official government narrative about what actually happened to these people. And they tell this story in this like really bombastic, like arena rock style that is completely an anachronism from the historical time period, but it's an anachronism in a way that kind of makes sense emotionally and thematically, right? They're being rebellious. They're telling the truth that the man doesn't want you to hear. And so they're doing this like really wild musical style to communicate this, and a large portion of this movie consists of just listening to them play these long songs where they tell stories and kind of like hype themselves up, and they're kind of creating this cult of personality around Inu-oh. Who's like considered this musical genius, this rock god, right? Who's mysterious and strange looking, and people are kind of drawn to him in this like magnetic way, in the same way people were drawn to like Freddie Mercury or David Bowie or something like that. And that's pretty much the story. There's not a whole lot else to it. You get a little bit of backstory at the very beginning before these characters link up, and then the characters link up pretty early on, and then they just start kind of playing music and telling other stories. But that's kind of where the narrative stops. And my main thing about this movie is that like aesthetically, musically, animation wise, visually, it is astounding. It's amazing. There's so many really cool touches they do, and so many really cool like visual territory that Yuasa branches out into. Like, for example, the main character I neglected to mention is blind, and he goes blind early on in the movie because of the thing that happened to his dad when his dad dies. And there are moments in the movie where you see through his eyes, and you're just looking through you're looking at a pitch black image, but when he hears things, you see those things show up in the blackness and in kind of this kind of glowing pastel colors. And you're getting a sense of how somebody who is visually impaired in that way kind of puts together a mental picture of what they're looking at just through sound. I mean, it's really, really, really amazing. Like beautiful, like feat of animation, what happens in those sequences. And there's plenty of other sequences that I could describe as well. But, again, aesthetically, movie is kind of amazing. Narratively, I got pretty like bored / confused pretty early. Like it just kind of hits this plateau and stays right there. And the music is engaging, and like there's a lot of cool dance cinematography that you get to see these animated characters do that is also really impressive. But that still wasn't enough to kind of like keep me in it for the full runtime. I should also say that like they return to the same well of like playing the same song, basically like the same chord progression, the same melody over and over and over. And they often dwell on that song for a very, very, very long time. And there were times where it just felt kind of tedious to me. So I'm positive to mixed on it. I do think people should see it. I think it's Yuasa's second best movie after Night of Short Walk on Girl. And I think he is like a major talent in the world of anime, like major talent. I want to see him continue to make movies. I want to see him to continue to refine the kinds of stories that he tells. But I ultimately wish this one worked for me a little bit more than it did. So yeah, that's Inu-oh. It is playing in some theaters now. It'll probably be on streaming sooner rather than later. Worth checking out, I would say.
I wanted to see how long it'd take Andrew to clock that everybody's petting cats.
Very nice. I wonder where my cat is. I should bring him in here.
Cool. Yeah, Yuasa, interesting. Even when it's not great, still interesting.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, Paige, we're gonna send it over, and you're gonna take us back in time.
Okay.
Or the 90s classic, as well as the original of the 90s classic.
Yeah. So my sister gave me access to her Disney Plus account. And I've also been spending a lot of time babysitting my girlfriend's bird. And I'm using this bird to experiment with like different musicals to see what he really vibes to. So I've just been kind of like a garbage disposal of Disney media for the past few weeks.
You got to show the bird Inu-oh. I want to know what the bird thinks.
He responds very well to chaos and violence. He really loved Sweeney Todd. Just seeing this little bird like freaking out over like rivers of blood was just fantastic. But anyways, so amongst my garbage disposal adventure, I watched first Pollyanna, sobbed a bunch, remembered, oh yeah, I love this movie. I love Haley Mills. I'm going to watch The Parent Trap. And the exact same thing, was just crazy about it. And I didn't think that I would be, because if you don't know the story of The Parent Trap, basically it is these two separated twins who had no idea they had a twin, wind up at the same camp, discover they're twins, and then have this plot to switch lives temporarily and then get their parents back together, and they can be like one big happy family again. And if you just look at that synopsis, that just sounds like nothing. That just sounds like something.
It honestly sounds like a chaotic move to be like, we're going to get a divorce. You take a kid, I'll take a kid. We'll never mention it to one another. And then go about our lives.
Questionable. Very questionable parenting.
Yeah. These parents need to be trapped.
Exactly. But all of the jokes in the 60s one still hit. It's all very genuine. There's no... I feel like I talk about this a lot, but there's a lot of... like, there's this habit that movies do these days where, like, they want to have an emotional scene, but then there always has to be a character going, well, that just happened, to kind of break it up. Mm-hmm. But movies like... and from the 60s, we're just so unapologetic. Like, this is the feeling we want you to feel. We're just gonna stay here and just be emotional, and you can take it or leave it. And so that was really nice to just have this uninhibited movie about like meeting these like a parent that you never knew you had, and they turn out to be wonderful, and just having this extended family and all of them love you. Like it was just really lovely, and so genuine. And then I was like, what if I revisited that 1998 one too? And that one also slaps. It's so good. I think I am very fond of the direction and the authenticity of the emotions from the original, but the comedy in the 98 one is just so good. The lady that plays Meredith is just a phenomenal villain. All the pranks that they play on her are just hysterical. It's just one of those movies where I feel like you have to be just a cold-hearted little gremlin to not think anything is funny.
You have the two like bisexual butlers that they each have because for whatever reason they both have butlers.
They do both have butlers. They're bisexual?
You can't tell me that they're not both, swinging for both teams.
Which one are you talking about? You're talking about the 98 one, right?
Yeah.
You are 100% correct. I don't know. I cannot believe you are absolutely
Paige's gaydar is on the fritz.
Damn, I was too busy just lusting over Meredith Blythe, I guess. But you are so right. Those are bicons for sure. Bicon butlers.
I just like that they both have butlers, and they're both like, I'm going to be into you, but also I feel like we're going to see people on the side.
Yeah,
who are a different gender.
You're right.
Have you ever seen The Trouble with Angels?
I haven't.
Does it have Lindsay Lohan?
No, it has Haley Mills. That's why I'm bringing it up. So it's an Ida Lupino movie. Major female filmmaker from Golden Age of Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And it's about Haley Mills and this other actress, June Harding, who are both sent to a Catholic boarding school against their will, and they become best friends and rebel against the authority figures of their school, and it's adorable.
I have
you would
got to
love it.
see this. I
Yeah.
love Haley Mills so much. She's a precious button.
Is she like 70 years old now?
I don't know. Is she alive? Also, I forgot. I don't know if you guys remember that there's a movie called It Takes Two by the Olsen twins, which is the exact Parent Trap.
76 years old.
She's still alive.
76.
Yeah. Did you know?
Shout out to Haley Mills. Thanks for listening to our podcast.
Did you know there's a Parent Trap 2 that came out in 1986?
No.
And the plot is a girl asks her divorced mother's twin sister to flirt with another girl's widowed father.
I'm sorry.
It also has Haley Mills in it.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I need to watch all of Haley Mills' filmography.
Yeah.
It's a large filmography. Probably not a great idea. There's a Parent Trap 3 that came out in 1989. When Jeff plans to marry again, his triplet daughters, Megan, Lisa, and Jessie, tried to bring him together with Susan.
How many damn
triplet
kids
daughters? Okay, this could have been an opportunity.
Wait, is Haley Mills the mom in that one?
What?
Yeah.
She gets parent trapped?
I kind of want to watch all three of these. It sounds like a journey.
That's
next
our next
series. Parent Trap.
It sounds great.
Right.
We do those three, and then we do the 90 one.
And then we do the Olsen one.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
It's decided.
Cool. Well, what parent?
And
the parent.
Both of those, the 61 and the 98, use the same actress. Like they didn't have twins, by the way. And they do a good job in both of them. Like it's pretty seamless. Just I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Cool little fact.
Yeah.
I thought for a long time I thought that there were two Lindsay Lohan, so it's okay.
That's her first movie. She's so little.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's two of them.
Oh, it's the first Lindsay Lohan movie?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Was
she like a TV star before?
No, she was just Lindsay Lohan. They were like,
huh.
She was just kind of roaming the
Parent
streets.
Trap really hit.
Yeah, it's she was on a soap opera, and then she was in Parent Trap. What
really
ended the first question on Google is what ended Lindsay Lohan's career?
Wasn't it the extreme plastic surgery? Was that the reason?
That some court time, things like that.
Is it officially ended?
I don't think it's officially ended.
She made a pretty good Paul Schrader movie, The Canyons. I like that movie.
Yeah.
I loved Freaky Friday so much.
We should do a Lindsay Lohan Cinematary series. Do Parent Trap, Mean Girls, Freaky Friday,
Yes.
Herbie Fully Loaded, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen.
Yes, we should do that.
Life Size.
Yeah.
I forgot about Life Size.
Just My Luck with A.B. Chris Pine. Coming soon on Cinematary.
She did that movie I Know Who Killed Me, where the poster looks identical to The Prestige.
I have never heard of this.
Oh man, I saw it in Blockbuster as a kid, and I was like, "That's The Prestige, right?" And it was not The Prestige.
Now I'm looking at it. That's 100% like The Prestige.
Yeah, like it's got to be intentional.
If it is, that's hilarious. I approve. Life Size 2 in 2018.
There was a Life Size 2?
Just a strong career from old LL, you know.
And apparently she was also on Glee. I missed it. How did I miss that?
We'll get into this in the
Hear me
Lindsay
out.
Lohan series.
Parent Trap series that transitions seamlessly into a life-size series.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was gonna be Lindsay Lohan. Since it's her first movie, we just transition into the Lindsay Lohan series. Yeah. And we all write about it in our diaries, and we post the episodes on MySpace. It's happening.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Well, I believe all the Parent Traps are on Disney Plus.
They are.
If you or a bird that you know would like to watch them. All right, I'm going to talk about two movies that pissed me off. which seems like the energy we need to turn this podcast into. The first one is Uncharted. Came out last year or earlier this year? No, earlier this year.
No,
I think it was earlier this year. Yeah, earlier this year. It's on Netflix now because it kind of has the same energy as a Netflix movie. I'll preface, big fan of the Uncharted video games. They're not like world bending examples of video games, but it's pretty much like, what if we kind of took Indiana Jones and made you Indiana Jones? I'm like, yeah, that's what anybody would want. And I'll give it credit that there are like the interactivity of like the set pieces in terms of video game mechanics was always I always found to be, I mean, they're fun. They're super fun. This is not fun. This is the opposite of fun. And it's a weird thing because like the video game is that series is based off of movies. So it's like the movie to video game to movie thing. And so it's almost like, because the movie is already, it's like Fractions, where the fact that movie's already there, it kind of cancels those two out and makes them bad. And so they've been trying to make this Uncharted movie, I think, for a minute now. Mark Wahlberg is in this movie and actually was originally supposed to play the lead character of Nathan Drake. So instead he's playing the partner, Sully. And I have nothing much to say on Mark Wahlberg in this movie. It kind of feels like he showed up for a couple weeks as Mark Wahlberg and they filmed him and then he left. And the plot of this one, so you got Nathan Drake played by Tom Holland, who I'll get to him later. We're
coming for you, Tom Holland.
Well, it's like the whole thing is like there's a treasure, and Mark Wahlberg's like, "Hey, you got to come get the treasure with me." And Tom Holland's like, "Okay." And they're like, the other person getting the treasure is Antonio Banderas, who I'm happy got a good paycheck. And a couple other people. Outside of that, there's not really any known actors or actresses in this. So the treasure is it's a shipwreck. Magellan, his shipwreck with all his money. They're gonna go find that. That's what the thing is. I don't see how you can make a treasure hunting action adventure movie this boring, but director Ruben Fleischer sure gave it a whirl. Like, I can't emphasize enough how just you get tired during it. Like you're just yawning because you're just like, nothing's happening here. There's way too much talking. There's way too much like setup. Tom Holland's just not a good actor. Sorry to all the young people into Tom Holland. I'll be honest with you, he's not a good actor in Spider-Man either. He's just got this really jovial, I dare say, theater kid energy. It's like he knows he's not impressive or talented, and so he's like really working hard to make you think that he's impressive and talented. And
he's coasting off being on the cover of Non-Threatening Boys magazine.
Yeah, and so it's just like, I don't know. Have a personality, man. He doesn't have a personality. And like, that's fine, but don't make him front a movie if he has no personality. Like, think about, for those who saw Top Gun Maverick, think about the personality exuding from Glenn Powell in that movie. Just dude is his Musk. He's got personality as Musk. Love me some Glenn Powell. Tom Holland sits in bed like the Wolverine meme, touching a picture of Glenn Powell, going, "I wish I had that Musk of personality." It's not here. I can't even. I don't. It's one of those movies. I watched it recently. I don't remember anything that happened in this movie. I remember they made some cracks. I remember there was a couple action pieces that were embarrassing because the video game did a better job of it than this movie.
Do the cracks have a that happened, like deflation?
Yeah, thing? Yeah. To Paige's earlier point, it's very it's very like Mark Wahlberg going, "What's going on here?" At one point he walks in, they're like in Spain, and he walks into like a pizza place, and he's like, "I'm literally in a Papa John's right now." And you're just like, okay. And it's boring. I think they're gonna make a second one. It's boring. Ruben Fleischer, he looks like somebody who played a lot of beer pong and called somebody jabroni for 3 years in college, and possibly still calls the person jabroni. And I'm glad that he's having a career, I guess.
Did you see Venom?
No, I need to watch those. I heard.
I know a lot of people like Venom.
I feel like that's more because of Tom Hardy and his chaotic energy
I
than
like
anything
Venom.
Ruben Fleischer did. I'm sure they're great. I'm not going to give Ruben Fleischer.
I don't know if they're great, but I like them.
I think that's what most people who like Venom have to say about it.
Is it a good movie? It's a movie. And I like Tom, not Holland, Tom. I immediately forgot his name.
Tom.
The other Tom.
Well, Uncharted, it's on Netflix. If your sleeping pills aren't working, it is available. Let me talk real quickly about a movie that I have deeply strong feelings about, and that is Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain. So for those who aren't familiar with Anthony Bourdain's story, a long time was a chef, travel host. In 2018, though, he committed suicide while they were filming his series Parts Unknown. And so it was one of those things. It's one of those like celebrity deaths that I quite honestly wasn't super familiar with Anthony Bourdain prior to his death, and then I just saw like it very similar to like how I reacted to Robin Williams and David Bowie, where you just saw like the way people described what they meant to them, that you were like, oh, like there must be something about this person, and then you start engaging with what they created, and you're like, oh yeah, this is an incredible, fascinating person. And so I started watching Parts Unknown about a little over a year ago. And I just recently concluded it, which is why I watched the documentary. And a real quick aside, Parts Unknown is probably one of the greatest television programs in the history of TV. Like, there's episodes of Parts Unknown that are just leagues better than anything being put in like multiplexes and movie theaters nowadays. Like, and it's not even just like the original stuff. Bourdain also had like this rich appreciation and knowledge of movies. I mean, there's a whole episode late in the series where he goes to Hong Kong, and literally in the episode is Christopher Doyle, the longtime Wong Kar-wai cinematographer, and they make this whole episode like paying homage to Wong Kar-wai movies, and Christopher Doyle is shooting the entire thing, and it's one of the greatest like hours of television you could ever watch. There's this episode in the second season where he goes to Denmark, and the narrative structure of it on top of the filmmaking is better than anything you'll probably find in many places. But that's an aside. If you've never watched Parts Unknown, I would absolutely put like an emphasis on watching that at some point. So I watched all of that, really responded to Bourdain and the way he thinks and the way he interacts with people and the appreciation and attention that he gives to people. So then you have Roadrunner, which is the documentary. It's made by Morgan Neville, who did the Will You Be My Neighbor, the Mr. Rogers documentary. And as I dig into the issues with this movie, I'm going to also preface by saying that Morgan Neville should never be allowed to make another movie ever again. So the documentary starts with it pretty much documents Bourdain's career, but not from the start. Kind of when Kitchen Confidential, his novel and his book that looks into goes behind the scenes of kitchen life in New York City, became like an international bestseller. And so it picks him up there through his start in television and ends up, in the final days of Parts Unknown. And it features a lot of familiar faces for people who have seen who've seen episodes of the show, notably Eric Ripert, the French chef who appears in a lot of episodes with Bourdain, was probably one of Bourdain's best friends, especially just you see their relationship through the program, but also was the one who found Bourdain when he had killed himself. And so you have Eric Ripert, who speaks, very gently and kindly about his friend. But the movie, so the first egregious error that the movie makes is there is a predominant use of voiceover. And I understand why they're doing it, because you have, if you watch Parts Unknown, you have you get so accustomed to the cadence, the language, the poetry of Bourdain's writing as he kind of narrates you through the episode and takes you through these different places. And so Morgan Neville is definitely trying to recapture that. But let me, a reminder, Anthony Bourdain is dead at this point. And so in order to create this, rather than pulling from episodes or stuff or things like that, he has an AI with Anthony Bourdain's voice read stuff that they wrote to carry along the narrative. So that's egregious error number one. Egregious error number two is that the back half of the documentary, probably the last 45 minutes of this documentary, puts pretty much posits that his girlfriend at the time, Aja Argento, is the reason is possibly the reason why he killed himself. Whoa. And they spend the last 45 minutes literally trying to figure out why this man killed himself, which not only is like a defacement to, you should never spend any amount of time on a program of any sort trying to figure out why somebody killed themselves. One. Two, it's doing such a remarkable disservice to somebody like Anthony Bourdain, who would have been beside himself if he saw this thing, that you would not like it shows a lack of understanding of like what he meant to people, how he engaged with people, and what this program meant to a lot of people, because he does this like you should focus on that. You should focus on, because clearly, like, when he died, so many people were just outpouring with what the program meant to them, what his interactions meant with people, the way he handled like interviews and questions with just this generosity and this empathy is par none. And that's what you should be focusing on. Instead, you spend 45 minutes trying to literally, like a TMZ investigator, figure out why this man killed himself. And so I fucking hated it. Like, this is a piece of shit documentary. Morgan Neville should never make another movie ever again. And like, honestly, I'm like, a lot of the back half of this movie is also these crew members who worked with him kind of going, yeah, he could be an asshole. He did this and that and the other. We really felt like this woman was manipulating him, and like, this is probably why he killed himself. And like, to think of the betrayal like this person would have if he was alive, to know that his friends spent, almost an hour of a documentary about his life doing that. I think Bourdain would vomit all over himself if he knew that. And so that's Roadrunner. Do not watch it. Spend your time watching Parts Unknown, and stay as far away from this documentary and Morgan Neville as you can.
You still gave it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I don't know. Stars are meaningless to me. That's how I feel. It's better expressed in words than stars.
Always.
Yeah. But seriously, if you have not watched Parts Unknown, you should. It's wonderful. And yeah, do not watch this documentary. The end.
Got it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back talking about In the Realm of the Senses after this.
Man, what audio are you going to play to To segue us into In the Realm of the
Just-
Senses.
Just moaning.
Just
Just
moaning.
moaning.
Yeah.
just like 30 seconds of oh yeah.
Not even
Was there
from the
any
movie.
music in it?
I don't remember there being any music. Oh wait. There's the guy who does the chicken dance and sings.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's lots of the geisha play some horrible.
That's also
songs.
true.
Let me look. I'm gonna look at the IMDb and see if there was. Usually has.
I have been down a rabbit hole of how this film was made.
Oh man.
So I'm excited to talk.
Oh, what
Better you than
in
me.
the realm of the senses?
Mm-hmm. The way I find the story it's based on and the way it was made so much more fascinating than the actual movie. It's a shame.
This says there's two. Ume wa Sataka, or Is the Plum Blooming, a Japanese traditional folk song.
Well,
yeah.
I'm ready to jump right into it if you guys are.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a sip of our sponsored drink.
In the middle of you saying your PBR gag, I was trying to make a gag in my head about what PBR stands for. And I was like, podcast. Bad raspberry sound? No, that's not it. That's not
What about beer? Podcast beer.
I would like to show to the YouTube audience that this is the paper I was reading off of. All improv. So that's how talented I am.
That's so becoming talented. An improv guy.
Yeah, I'm an improv guy.
His worst enemy.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing musical theater and improv before you know it. Just hate myself. Just hate myself. Yeah, I know.
What is your cat's name?
Gigi.
Gigi. Aw, that's perfect.
He is also like the cat in Kiki's Delivery Service where he just talks all the time and it's really annoying.
You think it's annoying? Oh.
He doesn't sound like Phil Hartman, so it's kind of.
Ivy does a lot of yelling and Waluigi sounds. She's always going wah, wah, all the time.
Wah.
I'll have to add, In the Realm of the Senses, very difficult movie to find a screenshot for that doesn't just have just tits.
Mm-hmm.
That one of them backed up, and she's like in his lap, wearing a kimono.
I have her like strangling him because I was like, that makes it look like people are gonna be like, what's going on here?
It's a great Criterion cover.
What's going on here?
Yeah, the Criterion cover is real good.
I like the cover. I feel like it looks so cool.
It looks like a Wong Kar-wai movie.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's not.
I really expected to be captivated by this just based on the art alone. So
damn, yeah.
It's like the opposite of a Wong Kar-wai movie because there's just a bunch of a bunch of penetration and not any Wong Kar-wai is all about the foreplay and no
years of foreplay.
In the mood for fuck. For 2 hours.
This is like somebody made a porn version of In the Mood for Love, and it's just called In the Mood for Fuck. Oh, all right, let's do it. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 417 of Cinematary. In this part, we'll be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1976's In the Realm of the Senses, written and directed by Nagisa Oshima. The film stars Ieko Matsuda, Tatsuya Fuji, and Ayo Nakajima. A former prostitute, now working as a servant, begins a torrid affair with her married employer. It is a fictionalized and sexually explicit treatment of a 1936 murder committed by Sada Abe. Strict censorship laws in Japan would not have allowed the film to be made, according to Oshima's vision. This obstruction was bypassed by officially listing the production as a French enterprise, of course, the French, and the underdeveloped footage was shipped to France for processing and editing. At its premiere in Japan, the film's sexual activity was optically censored using reframing and blurring. In the United States, the film was initially banned upon its premiere at the 1976 New York Film Festival, but was later screened uncut, and a similar fate awaited the film when it was released in Germany. It was also banned because of a scene in which Kichi pushes an egg into Sada's vulva, forcing her to push it out of her vagina before Kichi eats the egg. The film was not available on home video until 1990, although it was sometimes seen uncut in film clubs. Because of its sexual themes and explicit scenes, the film was the cause of great controversy in Portugal in 1991 after it aired on public television station RTP. Some deemed it inappropriate even for the watershed slot, while others appreciated its airing. The film aired again on RTP2, almost unnoticed. Oshima, was talking about obscenity in 1976, said, quote, "The concept of obscenity is tested when we dare to look at something that we desire to see but have forbidden ourselves to look at. When we feel that everything has been revealed, obscenity disappears and there is a certain liberation. When that which one had wanted to see isn't sufficiently revealed, however the taboo remains, the feeling of obscenity stays and an even greater obscenity comes into being. Pornographic films are thus a testing ground for obscenity, and the benefits of pornography are clear. Pornographic cinema should be authorized immediately and completely. Only thus can obscenity be rendered essentially meaningless." While the supporting cast were veterans of adult film, the two leads were not. Kichi was played by Tsuya Fuji, a film actor who had acted in many of Nikatsu's action films during the 60s. He had also played a part in the Gangster VIP series. Sada Abe was played by Yoko Matsuda, who came from the world of avant-garde theater. Apart from a role in one of the Stray Cat films, In the Realm of the Senses was Matsuda's first and sadly only major film. While Fuji continues to act in films to this day, Matsuda was vilified by the media thanks to In the Realm of the Senses and never had much of a film career after it. She passed away in 2011. The New York Times reviewing the film in 1977. I just have to add the headline for this, which is In the Realm of the Senses is rated W for why. It's impossible to see a painting if your nose is squashed right up against the canvas. Even with the contemporary pleasure and turned up volume, there is a point at which music is so loud it can't be heard. Excessive visual shock will turn an audience's attention from any other quality a movie may possess and center it exclusively on its own pain. Nagisa Oshima's film about sexual obsession, In the Realm of the Senses, was not, in fact, doing very well when, in the last couple of minutes, he turned the volume up. It had become tedious, repetitious. Its limited strengths had long since been exhausted from overuse. And in those last couple of minutes, a trying film became an intolerable one. I am using the word intolerable as a critic and not to justify the United States Customs ban on the film last fall. Senses does not show anything that has not been available in hardcore porn houses around Manhattan, except an undeniable, though I think poorly used artistic imagination. On that note, let's talk about In the Realm of the Senses. Paige, you got all the notes.
I do have so many notes, and
so before we get to that, what did you think of the movie?
Okay, I didn't like the movie. I'm gonna be real with you. It was a really unpleasant experience, and I was very let down. I think I had in my head that I was going to watch some erotic art. Because the poster was so good, and I looked at all the reviews, and Letterboxd did that thing where everyone was like, "It's a masterpiece, blah blah blah, change nothing, darling." And I believed them, so I went in so excited, and I watched it with Andrew, and I kept looking over at him like, "Are you also having a terrible time?"
And I was,
and he was. So, which is a shame because I thought a 2-hour movie about sex would be really fun, or at least interesting at the very least, but I was bored. Unsimulated sex for 2 hours was boring. I wanted it to stop. I needed them to stop. I kept saying, I hate this realm. I want out of this realm.
That's what the workers at the different hotels were probably saying.
They were definitely saying that.
They were just like, will you stop, please? Like, I'm not getting paid enough for this. You know, Biden and the inflation, like, I can't do this.
So, like, we just want to pick up some socks, maybe take your sake away, please.
Do you want your socks? No, we like it there. All right, well, shit. Like, Andrew, what did you make of this movie?
Oh, I mean, I also had a horrible time. It's my main takeaway. Me and Paige were like continually commenting upon like the quality of the sex that we were seeing
Oh
on
my
screen,
gosh.
which was just horrible, right? Like
6 out of 10 with that one.
Less than 6.
He would just put it in, and that was sex.
He just puts it in, you know, or she just sits on him, and like they just sit there together, and that is the thing that is apparently driving these people so wild that they end up killing each other, basically. And you know, Zach, you said the thing in your fact sheet about how apparently everybody involved was like a porn veteran except the 2 leads.
Yeah,
like that's wild to me. Like maybe it's an artistic choice or something, but like these people are not good at having sex on camera.
she's like a theater nerd, and he was an actor, like a celebrated actor.
Wow. And so like I don't know, I feel like another version of this movie might involve like kind of enticing the audience a little bit, like getting them at least a little invested in the relationship, or at least help them understand the mindset that the characters themselves are in.
Yeah.
But like it just doesn't compute to me that these people are like murderously horny for each other, but like don't seem to know how to have sex. Like I don't. It was unpleasant to watch.
So you asked in the middle of it whether you were wondering if the director thought that this was sexy or not, and I did a bunch of diving, and he did not want it to be enticing. He wanted it to be like at all. He wanted it to be as far from porn as possible, and I think he succeeded in that because I was very bored.
But like, why exactly? Like
because during the time he was doing this huge battle with censorship, and he wanted, and they were saying it's about obscenity. It's not about trying to suffocate art. It's about obscenity, and what you're doing is obscene. He's like, well, why don't you define obscenity to me? And they're saying, well, if the audience is disturbed, then it's obscene. So he's like, well, if I take the subject matter and make the audience not disturbed, it is no longer obscene. So he just wanted us to be so bored with the idea of sex that it no longer becomes obscene.
Boredom was the point? Like he said that?
Yes. Well, not boredom, but he didn't want it to feel titillating. He just wanted it to feel like, oh, well, this is just another part of the movie.
I feel like titillation is on one side of a spectrum and disturbed is on the other side of the spectrum. And I feel like he does at times get to that side of the spectrum, like just through the sheer repetition of it. Like it's almost like what Paul Verhoeven does in Showgirls with nudity.
Yeah,
like he makes you totally desensitized.
Exactly. However, one of his goals was to make you like desensitized to the sex, but to really care about the characters, because he said at the time, like I think it was called like pink porn or something like that. Pink film, was like a big deal, and he always felt that the characters felt very cold and lifeless. So he thought that he would make you care about the characters, but I don't think he succeeded at that personally.
Didn't. Yeah.
I didn't care about the characters at all.
Yeah,
I wanted them to go. Just leave us alone. But I did like it. And he was very purposeful in all of his filming. Like he made sure the camera was like we were up in there because he wanted us to feel like we were part of it. But it's weird to like I want you to feel part of it, but like I didn't want to be in there. You know what I mean? I felt very suffocated.
It feels like there's these two conflicting impulses. Like he wants you to be like up in there. He wants you to not be able to avert your eyes from what you're seeing, but he also wants you to be repulsed from it at the same time.
Like he doesn't have any like he doesn't have like lingering shots, I think, of body parts like a lot of porn does, where you're like, look at these tits. Like there's none of that. You see the two of them most of the time. And he always made sure their genitals were on display at all times. So I thought that was fascinating. And also just the way that they shot it was very like risky. They knew that it was not allowed. So they booked this location and filmed in total secret, and and they did it all in a matter of weeks. And they couldn't review their film at the end of the day. They had to ship everything off to France for it to be like you said, it had to be made in France.
Of course, the French get involved,
They had to be.
Oh, is it perverted? Oh, sit it over here.
So it took 3 years of planning, and then they did it just to prove this point about how things are obscene because people make it obscene. It's not actually obscene.
So it's really all like a meta political thing about the Japanese film industry. It's not really about sex at all.
It's not. He's a majorly political filmmaker. Most of his stuff is centered around politics. And if you pay attention to things other than the very boring sex throughout the film, they're in the middle of I think there's a war happening, and they're always going in the opposite direction of soldiers, or they're just in they're specifically in their own little world while there is chaos around them. And he said the point of this movie was to take a look at these two people who were trapped in this social structure with no way out. So they just get obsessed with each other because this is the only form of freedom that they have, to the point where they destroy each other. And that on paper sounds so awesome to me, but I didn't feel that in the movie. And I don't know if I was just not looking for it, or
I don't think it's a failure of your perception, Paige. I feel like we're so zoomed in on these characters that we don't get a sense of the social strata around them, right? I know that there are some soldiers in a couple of scenes, but I couldn't tell you anything about that military conflict because the movie doesn't dwell on it.
And
no,
also,
you get the one scene where he's walking down the alleyway or the street or whatever, and you have the soldiers, and you just get this kind of very silent scene where he's kind of averting his attention and looking away from him. But that's literally the entirety of the entire movie.
We're supposed to glean all of that in those few sequences. And also there's I don't know if you realize this. I had to look over it. The sequence where Sada is just laying there while a little girl is running around playing. That's a dream she had of a little girl version of herself. Had no idea how we were supposed to get that. And then there was also the part where she grabs that little boy's penis and hurts him. That was also a dream sequence where she dreamed of hurting children.
What? How am I supposed to think that's a dream sequence?
I don't know. It did not feel like a dream sequence because he didn't use he insisted on not using any kind of transitions except for hard cuts.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He said that was too pornographic to use anything. He said dissolves are pornographic.
So I feel like somebody who uses the word pornographic as a derogatory term should not be making this movie, personally.
Yeah. He just wanted to stay away from porn, and I don't know. And also the story of Sada Abe is just so rad. It's just such a fascinating read. This was based on a true story, 1930s Japan. This woman who has had a horrendous life, a little girl that dreamed of being a geisha, whose parents treated her awfully. She was raped at a young age and became rebellious, and they sent her father sold her to a brothel, and she tried many times to escape the sex worker life, but couldn't because you're just kind of stuck in that cycle once you get in it. And so she finds this man and becomes completely obsessed with him because he was so set on pleasing her. He was so set on doing whatever she wanted, and no one had ever treated her that way.
That is not how it comes across.
I know it doesn't. She talks so much, in her, the quotes that you see. She talks so lovingly about this man. He would do anything for me. He was the most skilled lover I'd ever had. And I was like, what? They didn't do that in the movie at all.
He's actually actively rapey.
Yeah, he's super rapey. And she loved this guy so much that whenever her story hit the public, there was public sympathy for her because they felt like she had done it out of love and not jealousy. Whenever she was in front of the judge or the police. I don't remember exactly, but she said that I wanted to kill him because I knew that we couldn't be married, and the only way I could really love him if I was the only person that loved him. So I killed him. And everyone thought that that was like they were empathetic towards it. But it was also in the midst of this huge wave called Eroguro Nonsensu, which I'm sure I just butchered. But that means like erotic shoot, where'd it go? Erotic grotesque nonsense. Yes. So in the middle of erotic grotesque nonsense being a trend, and also in the midst of war,
wait. Can we back up? Erotic grotesque nonsense being a trend. Can we explain what exactly that entails?
What at the time they were producing a lot of media that was just sexy, gross, and weird. I would love to know more. I don't currently.
All right.
But that paired with a desperation of the public to hear about anything except poverty and war, this headline hit, and everyone was like, "Fuck yeah, this bitch is crazy. I love her."
Is it like the Japanese equivalent of the O.J. Simpson trial or something?
You know what? it is eerie. But yeah, she only served 5 years in prison. She was excused by the emperor. He was like, "You can go."
Wow.
All good.
Ooh, horny lady? Oh yeah.
She even wrote an autobiography. Like,
there's another movie about her by the one and only Nobuhiko Obayashi that I would like to see. And there's a review on Letterboxd from the critic Kristen Yansu Kim, who writes, "In the realm of the senses, walked so Sada could run." So that's the one that we should watch.
I do want to watch anything about Sada, anything about the Parent Trap. It's on my watch list. The sad thing is, after this movie was released, the actor that played Kichi went on to have many more successful films, but the actress, and I would love to know her name, Iko Matsuda, was villainized for it, and she didn't do anything like in film ever again, and that's just a really awful double standard, but I guess that's to be expected from the 70s.
Right.
Yeah. So I just think the story it was inspired by and the way that they made it is so fascinating. I just wish it was an enjoyable watch.
Can we
just
like Paige, maybe you could get on this soapbox with me real quick.
Okay.
Because this is something that we commiserate on frequently. Like eroticism in movies is done so poorly, right? Just like in general, right?
I totally agree.
Movies that include like, dwelled upon depictions of sex are almost always doing so in kind of a sex negative way. I don't get it. Like, maybe it comes from some desire on the part of filmmakers to be cynical or to be edgy or something, like to tell the hard truths that people don't want to know about the human condition or whatever. But like, it kind of sucks for this medium that, like, a visual medium that is like so I don't know, well suited for like depicting human sensuality. To like so rarely like actually let the audience enjoy that, right?
I mean, in most cases, erotic films are like erotic thrillers. They're like the protagonists are evil and their need for sex is evil.
Well, you were on this episode, Paige, but I think a good modern example is The Handmaiden in terms of like the trading between two people of like having a not necessarily erotic, but just like you felt like a deep connection through the sex, rather than it just being like, here are two hotties on the screen to make you go crazy. It's like, no, it's like, it seems like an actual partnership on screen.
It was that's a fantastic way to go about it. That was like sex through the lens of a love story, in my opinion, and most films don't do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, I mean, I'm sure it's more complex than this, but a lot of it comes down to just I think maybe it's not necessarily used for the story. It's more just used for the reaction, and maybe that's what Oshima is kind of getting at, is that it's a lot more like if you have a nude woman or a nude man or just anything on screen, it's more just to kind of elicit a reaction about like the taboo rather than the actual act itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just kind of a function of maybe it's tough because it partially it's because of codes, not even just the censorship codes, but like production, the Hays Code and things like that, like having to get around that. And so it seems like, even though, to your point, Andrew, that it seems like a medium that could elicit itself to like having these really strong erotic scenes, because it's been so tethered by codes and rules and laws.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more adept at doing like the entendres and the subversion, but also the entendres and the innuendos, and like think of how many pre-code and code films, like they're having sex, but it's more about like the conversation or something like that, rather than actual physical anything.
Right. Like romance is such a staple in film. Like almost any, like pick any genre, even if it's not a romance movie. Like a lot of time, the through line, the thing that is emotionally compelling for the audience is like you want the two leads to get together. But anytime we're watching a movie where like the two leads are together and we're getting to see them like share physical intimacy with one another, like we always have to like show the like dirty underbelly of that for some reason. I don't get this weird trend in like just cinema as an art form. I don't know. Maybe I'm painting with way too broad of a brush here, but I feel like I can name like way too few movies that actually like allow the characters or the audience to like enjoy this like very big part of just being a human being.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I think the sex for romance definitely is supposed to be this very floaty, dreamlike kind of sequence. You're not allowed to experience pleasure, really. It has, or there's like a cap on it,
Right.
Otherwise, it's dirty.
It becomes too much.
It's too much.
Well, are we talking about? I guess, what type of films are we talking? Are we talking about like American-made movies? Because I'm like, that probably just comes back to just the puritanical nature of America and kind of that whole, just kind of where we're built from. I feel like you probably get a little bit more freedom in French films, or
That's
even
true.
Spanish language films. Like, look, even though this is a Japanese film, that's also a pretty puritanical culture for the most part. And so I wonder also, like, it would be interesting to take a broader brush and look at just how, whether it's French or German or Spanish, like how those are also how eroticism and sexuality is portrayed in like films there.
To circle back to my original point about like a different version of this movie, what this might look like instead, if it allowed the characters to like, or allow the audience to actually get into the mindset of these characters. I feel like Oshima kind of gets in his story's way by making this into strictly this like shocking political statement. When if you're telling a story about Sada, based on the story that you told, Paige, it seems like the way to get inside that character's head is to show how much she likes it, right? And to make the audience feel like they like it as much as she does on screen, right? And then you have the cognitive dissonance of like, her jealousy and her rage and all that stuff that kind of comes bubbling up in the last act. But I don't think any of that stuff works if I hate watching the sex for the two acts leading up to that.
I agree. I mean, if he thought, well, if the audience is titillated, that means it's obscene, then I feel like his definition of obscenity like has some room to grow then. was.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is way
obscene?
more obscene
Yeah.
than like an actually erotic film, I think.
Yeah.
Not that I go around throwing
And
out
like
the word obscene all the time.
if he dared to make Sada's like pleasure and desire for him more realistic, that's obscene.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Circles back. Also, as I was talking, and how he said that he didn't want the audience to, he wanted it to kind of feel sterile and desensitized. Well, then why add in like scenes like the egg and like?
There's also the scene
why
of him
upset me?
dipping his food in her pussy juices. Because that's what they say. They say that if you want a long-lasting relationship, you gotta eat food dipped in your lover's pussy juices.
Yeah, and
as you do.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. There was another. There's like two expressions in there. He's like, "It feels best when the bladder is full." And
Yeah. Oh
like,
my
Who
god.
says this?
That's what they say.
And then she's like, "I can't wait. You just have to pee in me. Just pee inside me." God.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes down to they're kind of just two annoying people.
They're annoying.
They really are.
They're so annoying. I don't think this is the couple the Emperor pardoned. I really don't.
Yeah,
annoying
no,
and like
I think they just kind of suck, you know.
Annoying, I think, is a very gentle word for it. Like they are, you know, to be a little bit more forceful, disrespectful to other people who did not consent to watching them have sex.
Also,
and
he straight up rapes people.
That was where I was going to go next. Straight up, like abusive to other people. She just like sicks him on people, and he just rapes people because she tells him to.
I'm kind of like, so I had just read these articles and like what his intentions was, and now as I'm going over it, I'm like, my opinion is changing. I'm mad again. I'm circled back to mad.
Do you know if any of that stuff is true, Paige, about like the assault and stuff?
About whether this character assault. Well, from what I understand, this guy had a reputation of being a woman eater, so I'm guessing yes. But I don't know for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I was bored.
I was bored too.
I was bored.
It was a long 2 hours.
This was my pick for Young Critics. I apologize, everybody.
Yeah, it sucks, Andrew. And I bring up the point I brought up at the beginning. Why do we plan 2 straight movies with just unsimulated blowjob scenes? You know,
what was the other one?
Pink Flamingos last week.
There's unsimulated blowjobs?
Yeah, it's just
no
like
good?
It's like the 70s. It was just like everybody like we're filming the blowjobs. Everybody
just whip it out, y'all.
Yeah, as
Get to
Cinematary fun. He puts it in. That'll be a fun one that I'll not remember until next week's episode. Any final thoughts on the movie before we wrap up? It is available to those, I guess, interested on the Criterion channel. So when you finish, Art House Classics, you can watch really annoying people have sex for 2 hours.
I want to watch the Obayashi movie, which is also on Criterion channel.
That's what I'm doing for sure.
All right. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we list all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Cinematary. And whether it's $1, $5, whatever, we appreciate any sort of support. Thank you to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Corey Willingham, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marsathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series. We've got two episodes left. This one is 1988's Heathers. So diving into an old classic.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, because despite a culture that's saturating us with 1980s nostalgia. The 80s were a while ago, so get over it. I'm just going to let that linger. Till next week. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you then.
Bye.